Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to reverse engineer Chapter 9 of Machiavelli's The Prince. We're stripping away the history to reveal what is actually a universal blueprint for modern power dynamics. When most of us hear the name Machiavelli, we immediately picture brute force, ruthless deception, absolute dictatorships, the whole shebang. But right in the middle of his famous text, there's this hidden structural rule that completely shifts the model from force-based control to a consent-based power equilibrium. So today, we're taking this Renaissance text and treating it exactly like an engineering manual. Okay, let's just dive straight into this by asking the core question that drives this entire system model. If you completely strip away the military might and you strip away the inherited wealth, what actually keeps someone in charge? Like, what makes a leader, a digital platform, or a massive institution completely 100% necessary to the people beneath them? The answer might actually surprise you, because it's not about universal love, and it's definitely not about overwhelming strength. It is entirely about architectural positioning within a divided society. To figure this out, we're going to approach this theory like a complex machine. We'll examine the blueprint, look at the competing factions, unpack the psychology of authority, watch the machine in motion, run a quick crash test, and finally, look at exactly how this applies to your world today. Let's start with our foundational blueprint. This is a massive departure from raw conquest. Instead, it's a managed faction equilibrium where division, and this is key, where division actually creates stability. Machiavelli calls this the civil principality. Unlike a territory that's just been taken by a conquering army, this type of power structure emerges from within the society itself. The ruler is elevated either by the masses or by the elites. But the absolute secret here, the real core mechanism, is that the ruler doesn't actually want unity. The ruler is strongest when society remains deeply divided, allowing them to just sit above the conflict as the ultimate necessary arbiter. Now, what's really fascinating here is the conflicting incentive structure that acts as the foundational wiring of this power machine. On one side, we've got the masses. Their primary motivation isn't some grand ambition. It's simply a desperate everyday need for protection from being exploited by the elite class. Then, on the other side, we have the elites. They know they're heavily outnumbered, right? So their primary motivation is protection from a mass uprising that could violently strip them of their resources. Basically, these two groups are locked in a permanent, paralyzing state of mutual fear. And this is where the ruler comes in. The ruler sits right above this tension, needing only to act as the neutral balancing node to make themselves utterly indispensable to both factions. We call this the power asymmetry at the heart of the system. Think about it. The ruler doesn't need to be strong enough to defeat both the elites and the masses combined. No way. They literally only need to be strong enough to prevent either side from completely destroying the other. By doing just that, the ruler creates a permanent structural dependency on their arbitration power. So the absolutely crucial point here is this underlying psychological truth. Humans will tolerate a central authority if it means avoiding a much worse, unpredictable oppression from an opposing social group. This is the psychological engine of Machiavelli's model. It's the fear redistribution effect. You aren't supporting the ruler because you think they're a saint. You're supporting them because you are terrified of what the other faction is going to do to you if that ruler suddenly disappears. It's a relative oppression preference. And because of that fear, even if the ruler is entirely self-interested, both sides actively project this total neutrality onto them. It's a phenomenon we call the authority projection bias. The masses desperately want to believe the ruler is their noble protector against the greedy elites. The elites want to believe the ruler is their steadfast shield against the chaotic masses. So they both project the identity of a fair, unbiased referee onto a figure who is, in reality, just playing a highly strategic game to stay in power. Let's watch how this actually builds into a chronological, stabilizing feedback loop that keeps the whole machinery humming along. Imagine the elite class starts squeezing the population a bit too hard. This pressure naturally triggers a reaction where the frightened population turns to the central ruler and begs for help. Because the people literally ask for intervention, the ruler instantly gains massive legitimacy, which they then use to restrain the elites. The tension gets relieved, the balance is restored, and the ruler looks like a total hero. So the absolute anchor keeping this entire dynamic from flying apart is perceived neutrality. It is the single control node keeping the competing factions in perfect equilibrium. The ruler doesn't actually have to be perfectly fair, mind you, but they absolutely must be perceived as an independent mediator. But, as we know, every machine has its breaking point, which brings us to our crash test of the Machiavellian system. What actually happens when the ruler miscalculates? What happens when that delicate high-wire balance of mutual fear and perceived neutrality gets thrown completely out of whack? Well, if the ruler favors one side just a little too heavily, a brutal counterloop kicks in. If the ruler openly sides with the elites, for example, the masses realize they don't have a protector anymore, and panic immediately sets in. The alienated side is then forced to seek external alliances, which severely destabilizes the entire power distribution. In a flash, the ruler goes from being an indispensable mediator to an incredibly isolated target. The system completely collapses the exact moment one faction becomes strong enough to eliminate the need for the ruler as an intermediary. Here are the specific failure conditions you look for. Open alignment with the elites? That causes a popular revolt. Aligning entirely with the masses? That triggers an elite coup. On top of that, an inability to distribute resources reasonably across both factions completely ruins the perception of fairness. But the most dangerous failure condition of all? It's the emergence of a unified opposition coalition. That's when the elites and the masses actually stop hating each other for a second and decide they both hate the ruler way more. Now, this master compression block is exactly why this stuff matters today. We can map these Renaissance mechanics directly onto modern financial, digital, and organizational systems. In a financial trading system, the market maker is the ruler, maintaining that perfect equilibrium between buyers and sellers. In cybersecurity, it's the central authority balancing everyday users against powerful system admins, ensuring neither group dominates access. In a corporate environment, executive management acts as the indispensable mediator, constantly balancing the demands of everyday labor against the profit motives of shareholders. It's literally the exact same architecture, just wearing modern clothes. Once you understand this system, you also instantly understand the exact method to dismantle it. You have to expose the ruler's bias and accelerate coordination between those divided groups. If you ever find yourself needing to topple a civil principality type of structure, whether that's in business, politics, or community, your playbook is simple. You must shatter the illusion of their neutrality, relentlessly expose their bias toward one group, and work tirelessly to get the opposing factions talking to each other. Because the moment they coordinate, the central arbiter just becomes completely obsolete. However, if we apply some clinical objectivity to Machiavelli's own framework, we actually see a critical survivorship bias. He completely ignores how rapidly modern viral information cascades can shatter that vital illusion of neutrality. Machiavelli built this model for a very slow-moving binary world of basically just nobles and peasants. Today's networks are incredibly fragmented. Plus, he severely underestimated how powerful ideological unifiers like nationalism, religion, or digital tribalism can be at bridging the gap between factions. Most importantly, modern media systems can expose a ruler's bias in a matter of seconds, turning what looks like a totally stable equilibrium into a collapsed system literally overnight. So the dominant pattern we absolutely must take away from this explainer is this. Strategic rulers survive by balancing competing fears, not by eliminating them. Whether you are looking at a medieval king, a modern political coalition, a tech platform's governance model, or even multi-agent AI coordination systems, this principle holds true. You don't secure your position by making everyone hold hands and love you, or by obliterating all conflict. You secure your position by making sure the forces beneath you genuinely need you to keep the peace. So take a hard look at the platforms you use every day, the companies you work for, and the institutions you rely on. Are they really fair and neutral? Or are they just expertly managing your fears of the alternative? I'll leave you with that thought to analyze the complex systems in your own life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and until next time, keep exploring the hidden mechanics of the world.